All right, welcome back, Truth Seeker. It is Friday, June 4th, 2021, and I want to talk about one of the top headlines today that is based on the remarks made by Christopher Wray, the leader of the FBI, yesterday on the one-year anniversary of Klaus Schwab, the Jesuit, the leader of the World Economic Forum, calling for the Great Reset. And the FBI director, he echoed what Janet Napolitano said in 2013 as she resigned from the DHS head, saying that cyber attacks are a 9/11 level threat. And remember, Janet Napolitano, when she stepped down from the head of Department of Homeland Security, she said that the next 9/11 is not a matter of if, but when. And she said specifically it would be a cyber attack. And again, he makes these remarks on the one-year anniversary of Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum calling for the Great Reset, which was 1 month before he did the cyber polygon simulation, simulating cyber attacks that he said are coming and will be worse than the coronavirus pandemic. And remember, Klaus Schwab also did the Event 201 coronavirus pandemic simulation October 18th, 2019, 1 month before the outbreak in Wuhan, China. And that simulation was the same day the military world games began in Wuhan, China, that were created by the Jesuits. And again, Klaus Schwab is a Jesuit. And now we got the FBI head in Washington, D.C. making these remarks when the history of the FBI, the CIA, the federal government, it's all Jesuit. So we're going to look at several things here, remind about several stories we've talked about in the past year, and bring it all together. As I've always educated, the world of news and the world of sports are scripted together. And it's not an accident that he made these remarks on the same day the Phoenix Suns eliminated the Lakers. We'll get to how all of this is connected, because you might recall Phoenix and Arizona have a lot to do with the ongoing riddles pertaining to the power outages and cyber attacks. But where I want to start is actually by reading my oldest post in the time I've been doing this kind of work. When I started this research, I posted exclusively on Facebook starting in August of 2013. And on the same day that I deleted my Facebook page, because I was so annoyed with my friends and family who are brain dead like the rest of the masses, I just deleted the Facebook page that day. I started a blog site. And I didn't even write anything about Gematria in this post, but I just wrote about things that people should be able to wrap their head around. And I'm going to read this post. I posted this Thursday, October 24th, 2013. And again, I titled it The Next 9/11, the Carolinas and Numerology. And here's what I wrote. On August 27th, 2013, Janet Napolitano, Secretary of Homeland Security, resigned. In her outgoing speech, she warned of an upcoming serious cyber attack that could take down our power grid, one that could impact all functions of our daily lives. She said the attack was not a matter of if, only a matter of when. Days later, on September 2nd, 2013, Senator Lindsey Graham warned that if the United States did not attack Syria, it could mean a nuclear bomb detonates in Charleston, South Carolina. And again, he was just echoing the same kind of rhetoric you'd heard from the time of 9/11 on. Or New York. And again, just comparing the cyber attack to 9/11, again, just the parallels. Lindsey Graham added that the nuke would not come on the head of a missile, but in the belly of a ship. Graham's remarks, paired with other occurrences from popular culture echoing similar sentiments, makes one wonder if there could be something sinister at work in the North and South Carolina regions. And possibly Lindsey Graham knows something more than we do, and his words, along with Napolitano, should be taken with a degree of concern by we the people. As you read along, I will piece together some of the seemingly unconnected but related clues I have uncovered. If you watch television, you might have seen the show Revolution on NBC, a series that began in September of 2012. If you have not seen the show, it has a post-apocalyptic plot and is set in Wilmington, North Carolina, where the world mysteriously lost power 15 years earlier, and it has been a struggle to survive ever since. What is key about this show is the blackout scenario and its setting of Wilmington, which is not far from Charleston, South Carolina, where Lindsey Graham said a nuke could detonate. The possibility of this blackout scenario is becoming alluded to more and more in popular culture. If you look through recent news headlines, you've seen an upsurge in frequency of stories pertaining to the possibility of the power grid going down due to solar flares, meteors, and ballistic weapons launched from terrorists or foreign enemies of our federal government. For whatever reason, our media wants us to know more about this threat of a national blackout, especially as of the last 3 years. This blackout scenario, as alluded to in Revolution and other places, has been warned about by politicians from Newt Gingrich to the recently resigned Secretary Pulse. An EMP strike could instantly set our nation back a century and leave us in a state of mass chaos and panic. They titled the documentary 33 Minutes, and in the narration, it is said the name was chosen for the film because it would take 33 minutes for a nuclear warhead to reach the United States from either Iran or North Korea. In the same documentary, Ground Zero of New York City is visited, and while it shows the destruction of what was once the World Trade Center buildings, the narrator explains how if a nuke were to detonate in the sky above what was once the site of the former World Trade Center buildings, it would kill 1 million or more people instantly and cause widespread destruction to the power grid and nation's infrastructure. It is a frightening thought indeed, and one the documentary wants you to imagine. What I should have wrote there, and I must have forgot to write, is again, they called the site Ground Zero, and before 9/11, the only definition for Ground Zero was the point above or below ground where a nuclear or atomic bomb explodes. So them doing that without mentioning that part, kind of a mockery. In 2009, a fiction novel titled 1 Second After, with a foreword by Newt Gingrich, was released, also relating to a power grid down scenario. In this novel, an EMP attack destroys the nation's power grid, and from there a frightening apocalyptic world ensues. This novel is essentially the fictional retelling of what is told in the documentary 33 Minutes. The story of 1 Second After is set in Black Mountains, North Carolina, a town that is also not far from Charleston, South Carolina, and even closer to Wilmington, North Carolina. So together we have 2 stories set in North Carolina dealing with the power grid going down. We also have a senator from South Carolina claiming a nuclear bomb could go off in his home state in a city not far from Wilmington or Black Mountain. Perhaps Lindsey Graham has seen the 1983 movie Special Bulletin, in which a nuclear bomb does detonate on a ship in Charleston Harbor, reducing the region to dust and fire. The only other story I'm aware of pertaining to this topic is written by former Senator Byron Dorgan, where the story also deals with a national power grid down scenario, but the setting is in North Dakota, Byron Dorgan's home state. Then again, each story is told within a world where the entire nation's power grid is down, so setting might not be of total importance. Perhaps you're reading this and saying, so what? Well, I'll tell you what. Investigate the fictional book The Final Jihad, written in 1991 by the brother of the governor of Oklahoma and first published in 1994. Written in 1991 by the brother of the governor of Oklahoma and first published in 1994, then out of publishing before being back in publishing in 1996. The story follows a Tom McVeigh, who is from Oklahoma, bombs a federal building, downs a TWA flight, and then attacks the World Trade Center buildings. If you search for it on Amazon.com, reading the customer comments should give you a kick and maybe even a feeling of sick. The point is, clues were dropped in fiction, from books to TV programming to movies, about the upcoming terrorist attacks of 9/11. The history is there for you to uncover, should you choose to do so, and for the moment, I'll give you a little taste. The Lone Gunman, a pilot episode which aired on Fox in March of 2001, showcased an airplane being hijacked and nearly flown into the World Trade Center buildings just before the hero of the episode saves the day and avoids the tragedy. Outside of that, other subtle clues were intertwined in mainstream programming through the 90s and even before. A 1994 article in Vice magazine shows Beavis and Butthead with turbans and darker skin, each flying separate planes into the World Trade Center buildings. The illustration accompanies an article introducing a little-known terrorist organization by the name of, you guessed it, Al-Qaeda. Better yet, if you saw the 1999 Hollywood blockbuster The Matrix, you may have noticed Neo's passport expired on 9/11/2001. Curious coincidences, don't you think? Fight Club, the other blockbuster from the same era of movies, ended with a city skyline of buildings collapsing in freefall. Beyond these occurrences, there's many more, including a 1994 cartoon episode of Iron Man, where in the same episode a fighter jet is given the mission of destroying the World Trade Center towers in Pentagon. From Terminator to The Simpsons to Mario Brothers, clues about the upcoming events of 9/11 were abound, and if you want to see them for yourself, they're a short web search away. And really, the list is way beyond that. I mean, I wrote this back in 2013. We found way more things ever since. Okay, back on point. Charleston, South Carolina, Wilmington, North Carolina, and Black Mountain, North Carolina, the three sites of fictional predicted events and relating to power grids going down, when mapped out, make an almost perfectly symmetrical triangle. Again, that's what's up here at the top, you know. Those are the three cities. And where this star is, we'll talk about this battlefield in just a moment. When mapped out, make an almost perfectly symmetrical triangle. At the head of the triangle is Black Mountain, South Carolina, and just south of that site is Cowpens National Battlefield. If you can envision the triangle on the map as the all-seeing eye of the dollar bill, you can imagine how Cowpens National Battlefield would be the placement of the all-seeing eye in the arrangement. If you're not familiar with Cowpens National Battlefield and its significance to the Revolutionary War, please see these excerpts from history texts. Brigadier General Daniel Morgan defeated Lieutenant Colonel Banastre Tarleton and his army of British regulars. This is the turning point of the Revolution, as British troops never recovered from this defeat. On March 4th, 1929, Congress recognized the importance of the Battle of Cowpens by creating Cowpens National Battlefield. The Battle of Cowpens, January 17, 1781, took place in the latter part of the Southern campaign of the American Revolution and of the Revolution itself. It became known as the turning point of the war in the South, part of a chain of events leading to Patriot victory at Yorktown. The Cowpens victory was won over a crack British regular army and brought together strong armies and leaders who made their mark in history. Now remember, Revolution, that's also the TV show that's set in this same area that's about the power outage. And again, it was the American Revolution and the changing of history. And again, that's how these people do things. They take dates from history, they reverse history, they pay tribute to history. On October 18th, 1781, the British Army surrendered at Yorktown. Cowpens, in its part in the Revolution, was a surprising victory and a turning point that changed the psychology of the entire war. Morgan's unorthodox but tactical masterpiece had indeed spirited up the people, not just those of the backcountry Carolinas, but those in all the colonies. In the process, he gave Tarleton and the British a devil of a whipping. Cowpens Battlefield is the place we remember for what turned the American Revolution in our favor. It is a place of major historical ramifications. It is symbolic. It is the site of a battle you could say helped secure our sovereignty as a nation from Britain and foreign rule, something that is very much in threat today. Since the attacks on 9/11, our nation's constitution has been subverted and our military has been used in illegal wars of aggression. All that has happened has been against the will of the people. It seems that post-9/11 America has not been a time of sovereignty, but instead a time of widespread treason, infiltration, and deceit. Perhaps our rulers, those who have infiltrated us and now govern from the shadows, would like to destroy the region, possibly even the site where our sovereignty was once earned, Cowpens Battlefield. The destruction of such a site could signal the final fall from what we once were, a proud nation free of rule by tyranny. At this current moment in history, we are a nation staring down the barrel of World War III and a nation of laws that resemble that of a police state, where citizens can be arrested and detained without warrant and for as long as needed as need be if suspected of being a terrorist or involved with terrorism. Again, that is the law of the land if you guys don't realize that all those changes happened after 9/11. This is not the country any of us were raised to believe we lived in. Instead, it is an Orwellian nightmare, one disaster away from something darker than even George could have imagined. That disaster that tips us the wrong way for eternity may come in the Carolinas, and it may come soon. If you listen to the rhetoric or you look at some of the major obscure clues in popular media, the writing is on the wall. In fact, it has been on the wall for a very long time. We are a nation that has been through the Cold War and one that has lived with the thought of nukes going off in our cities for decades. When you look at our history, you see how the events of 9/11 came to be. As Eisenhower once said in 1961, as he was exiting the presidency, the military-industrial complex must be stopped or it will grow to be our worst nightmare. Today we can safely say it has grown beyond our worst nightmares, and it is unfortunate his warning was largely ignored. But history is still being written, and we can learn from our mistakes, such as not recognizing the importance of numerology and symbolism and how it is used by our secret society masters. With regards to 9/11, please recall number 33 from the documentary mentioned earlier, 33 minutes. 33 is a number that has much significance, especially pertaining to 9/11. Perhaps you are not aware, but 911 was made the national emergency dialing code in 1968. Also in 1968, construction began on the World Trade Center complex. 33 years later, the two seemingly separate entities would become intertwined in one infamous, life-changing, tragic event. If you believe this is just a coincidence, find 9/11 Commissioner Bob Kerry's remarks in which he admitted the 9/11 attacks were a 30-year conspiracy to a journalist asking about the collapse of World Trade Center 7. Anyhow, 33 is a number that corresponds with Freemasonry and is recognized in the secret society as the highest echelon of membership. It is a number that is reflected in the Bible on our currency, throughout society, and often in tragedy if you pay extra attention to the headlines. From our recent history, the Virginia Tech shootings yielded 33 dead victims, and more recently than that, a 33-year-old Michael Hastings had his car explode in Los Angeles, not far from the 33rd parallel suburb, for reasons that are impossible to explain. If you guys don't know who Michael Hastings was, he was probably, if there was anyone putting out any truth on television, it was him. And it did seem like that's what happened to him. It's like, I'm not sure you're supposed to say things like that on TV. Next thing you know, his car explodes. There have been many more occurrences before, between, and since. And at the same time, what I just said, I mean, that could also be part of the psychological programming. Just like in the 60s, leaders who spoke up, they got assassinated. This was a guy speaking up like you hadn't seen anyone speak up in the longest time. His car explodes. If you pay attention, this number will grab your attention more often than you suspect, and when you see it, you should have a sense of suspicion because now you know what it pertains to or might possibly pertain to. This year, 2013, marks the 33rd year since the planting of a very suspicious monument in the hills of Georgia, where there are something called the Georgia Guidestones. They were placed there on March 22nd, 1980. Aside from them being placed there 33 years ago, because again, this was in 2013, the year that Napolitano made this great warning about, this devastating event that could set us a century back, cause all sorts of chaos in society. Remember, the Georgia Guidestones, well, we'll get to what they call for. They were placed there on March 22nd, 1980. Aside from them being placed there 33 years ago, 322, March 22nd, is a peculiar occurrence and is another number worth paying attention to. 322 happens to be the address of Yale's Skull and Bones fraternity and the date the Stamp Act was passed on, which gave way to the American Revolution. In movies, the number 322 is often hidden in scenes of terror. For example, in The Dark Knight Rises, when the football stadium is exploding, the camera pans to a man in a suite who is behind the attacks. Just beneath the glass of the suite, you see the section number 322 written on the concrete wall. In another recent film, Transformers, the Hoover Dam is attacked, and after the dam begins to leak, a shot is shown of the days with no injuries board, which reads 322. Can you imagine a terrorist attack on the Hoover Dam? Talk about a power grid down scenario. In such a scenario, chaos would surely ensue. The Georgia Guidestones placed in Georgia on March 22nd, 1980 have 10 rules etched in them, and the first is somewhat alarming and one that could only come out of a major disaster and chaos of unrivaled proportions. They are as follows. The first rule, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Rule 2, guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. 3, unite humanity with a living new language. I imagine that's English. 4, rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. 5, protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. 6, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. 7, avoid petty laws and useless officials. 8, balance personal rights with social duties. 9, prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. 10, be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. And again, you guys, just think about how all these things are coming together. We'll make it all more clear, but just, the great reset about getting back to a sustainable living. And I mean, on the surface, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way these people are going about these things. The cyber attack simulations. And again, so far the cyber attacks are on the things that are on the chopping block: fossil fuel, meat consumption. And again, there are reasons for all of this. The way we eat, the amount of, the amount of energy we use, it is destructive to the earth. So, I mean, there is rhyme and reason to the things they're doing. It's just the way they go about it. And you have to remember, these same tyrants are also responsible for the reason we've developed all these bad, destructive habits, because for a century, it benefited them as the industrialists who were shaping society as we know it. Again, look into Los Angeles. Los Angeles was originally planned as a compact city based around electric light rail. General Motors overtook the city, destroyed the electric light rail, and said, nah, we're going to be a big sprawling city based on the automobile. And then LA became a model that many other cities followed. Now these same people are the same ones all these years later saying, okay, we've abused the earth, now we have to do this, but we got to make sure we control our wealth and power. But essentially, that's also what they have etched in these stones from 322. These rules are written on 4 large stones, standing over 19 feet tall each. They are written in 12 languages. But the man who placed them there, R.C. Christensen, is an unknown. It is believed that it was only a pen name and not a real person. Whoever it was had resources, though, as this monument was no small task. Not only is it massive, it is placed and designed to commemorate specific astrological events. What it leaves one wondering is, do those who place them there have the ability to maintain the world's population under 500 million? If that were so, it would mean 13 out of every 14 living people on Earth today would have to die. If you are from the Carolinas or Northeast, or know anyone in this, I think I meant to write Southeast. It was probably Southeast I meant to write, because again, Southeast is where the Georgia Guidestones are. I'm sure that's what I meant to write. Or know anyone in this region, you should alert them to these findings. At most, they could be life-saving. At least, they could be eye-opening and informative. Also, in the case of a national power grid down scenario, you want to make sure you're prepared. That means you need water, canned dried food, generators, propane gas, blankets, and a propane stove. Also, you probably want to know the federal government has a planned drill for November 13th and 14th of 2013 where they will be preparing for a national power grid down scenario. If you know the history of false flag attacks, you know government drills are often planned for the same date they happen on. 9/11 attacks, 7/7 attacks, and Boston bombing attacks are all evidence of this. Please do what you will with this information. I'm not a psychic. I'm just an ordinary man in pursuit of truth and trying to make sense of what information I have. I care very much about people, and I want us to awaken and overcome these demons who currently hide in the shadows where they rule from. Thank you for reading, and peace be with you. I look forward to your comments and any information you may have to share. So again, posted this in 2013. What happened shortly after I posted this was Channel 4 in the UK and the National Geographic Channel, they put out hour-long realistic films of what it would look like if the power grid went down in the US and the UK. You can still go back and watch those films. I do not remember the titles, but we definitely talked about them back then. But again, it just shows chaos and how fast things would get bad. And just imagine it in our society, man. If they turned out the power, most people have, the only food they might have is probably in their freezer, their fridge. It could be spoiled in no time. I mean, grocery stores, we saw what happened last year. They said the toilet paper could sell out. It was gone in a day. Grocery stores for a while, it didn't take long for store shelves to get bare. And again, that they are prepping our minds to understand that these things can happen. And in a way, it almost seems like, they realize, they're going to get rid of a lot of people. The ones they probably want to survive are the ones who are probably a little bit more intelligent and perceptive. And I think that is also part of why they hint the way they do, So, again, at this time when all this stuff was happening, this is also just part of what made me say, okay, I cannot go back to the working world. I love teaching and working with kids, but I just realized, okay, there's not enough people awake to what's being forecast and how bad things can get here. This is why I've gone full-time all these years trying to wake people up to what we're living under, what they have planned for us, what they've etched in stone, and how they're operating. And again, we've come a long way since I wrote this post. Remember, at the end of last year, we said there would be a major power outage event in the U.S., and we circled 2 dates that it would happen, either January 15th or Valentine's Day. And there were power outages all over on Valentine's Day. That was the day it happened. So here, let's bring all this back together. So yesterday, Thursday, Jupiter, power, energy, FBI directors, cyber attacks are a 9/11 level threat. And if somebody knows exactly where this is, this picture in their thing, this is probably predictive programming. But look at this. The news stories are abound today, the day after the remarks. So there's plenty of news stories being written today, June 4th. But the remarks were made yesterday, which was the 1-year anniversary of Klaus Schwab calling for the Great Reset. So let's bring all this together. With regards to the news stories being written today, June 4th or 4/6, remember, Ordo Ab Chao, for Latin for order out of chaos, is 46. The symbol that they used for order out of chaos is the phoenix. The Phoenix Suns closed out the Lakers, keeping LeBron at 4-6 in finals on this same day. And we've been saying we got to watch Arizona in this time because we've been talking about it all year. The Economist cover 33 years ago with the Phoenix rising out of the ashes with the fleur-de-lis on its head, the Catholic symbol. But again, order out of chaos 46, Phoenix 46, chaos 46. Again, Manly P. Hall says the true founders of the United States of America consider themselves the Order of the Phoenix, where this is their tactic. Destroy and rebuild, bring something better, something new. But with regards to the fleur-de-lis being on the head of the Phoenix on The Economist, remember The Economist equals the same thing as Society of Jesus, who served the Catholic Church, the Jesuits, who are behind all of this, Klaus Schwab, the Jesuit. But the fleur-de-lis on the Phoenix's head, the Catholic symbol, Catholic 46. Right now we are in the time of the 46th president, Joe Biden, who sacrificed his son Beau Biden at age 46, who won the rigged election as we said he would because it was exactly 46 weeks after the Pope's birthday. Remember, Pope Francis 59, it was the 59th election. It was 46 weeks after Pope Francis' 83rd birthday, election 83. Again, Gematria. The phrase Ordo Ab Chao also has the gematria of 188, like cyber attack, like Bavarian Illuminati, which was founded by the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt. And Christopher Wray, who's the head of the FBI, who made these remarks on the anniversary of the Great Reset, look at his name. 206, Chaos has the 26. Christopher Wray, 89, Chaos 89. Christopher Wray, 199, which is the 46th prime number, Chaos 46. Christopher Wray, 82, like Ordo Ab Chao. And again, our federal government is the foxes guarding the hen houses. Notice these big terrorist events that so often happen. The FBI just happens to be on scene. The FBI just happened to be close by when the mass shooting went on. Again, you guys, it's mockery. It's because the government commits atrocities against us, blames it on a boogeyman, and then justifies their reason for existing, saying, see, you need us to keep you safe from these boogeymen, when in reality it's them that are the true terrorists. And don't forget that the original definition of terrorism is government by intimidation. Notice Christopher Wray is also 54 years old right now. Jesuit Order 54, John Carroll 54. John Carroll, who established the first Jesuit university while he was 54 years old, Georgetown in D.C. Christopher Wray also has the same Saturnalia birthday as Pope Francis, December 17th, the first Jesuit Pope. And from the birthday to his remarks, June 3rd, was 168 days. A lot of rituals go on in New York City with 168. Again, he said the coming cyber attack will be a 9/11 level event. Of course, 9/11 predominantly in New York City. So, that's one piece. And to review, Arizona, Phoenix. The Phoenix Suns with a big win, eliminating the Lakers from the playoffs on the day of these remarks. We've been talking about Phoenix all year with the ongoing rituals. But here was a big one. Public Enemy, the hip-hop group out of New York. Remember, Janet Napolitano's from New York. She was governor of Arizona. Public Enemy from New York, their latest album, What You Gonna Do When the Grid Goes Down, which came out last year, September 25th, 2020, has Arizona's Monument Valley on the cover. And remember, this album came out 142 days, 14/2. Excuse me, it came out 142 days before 14/2 Valentine's Day, when there were all these power outages. And even though we predicted that Valentine's Day was a likely day for the planned What You're Going to Do When the Grid Goes Down events, and realize that's just the beginning of it, you guys. This is going to get worse. People are saying, what's going to happen under these 19-year cycles? We don't want to know what's going to happen in the next 19-year cycle. And what I'd like to hope, though, is that we still have 19 years until the event that they keep forecasting does come here. But 19 years will come fast. You know, people my age and older know how fast time like that goes by. When you're a little kid, that sounds like a long time, but man, you start approaching 40, you're like, man, it feels like I was just 20. Anyhow, Monument Valley, Arizona on the cover of this album. Remember, Public Enemy put out the song in 91. By the time I get to Arizona, Phoenix equals 91, like how the Economist cover with the Phoenix rising from the ashes came out on January 9th. The date can be written 9/1 or 1/9. Chaos is 19. Phoenix is 91. The Phoenix represents order out of chaos. And again, the Phoenix is everywhere right now in movies, and just the symbolism's everywhere. And but what you going to do when the grid goes down? Arizona. Here's Monument Valley, Arizona, what's on the cover of the album. And again, Janet Napolitano, governor of Arizona, who was the head of DHS, who said the next 9/11 attack, it's not a matter of if but when, but it will be a cyber attack that cripples the power grid. Arizona, the southwest region, is where they did the Clay to X simulations. And again, even though that so much of the predictive programming that's been put out, like I wrote in the article, is for the southeast region, in all of those stories, even though they're set in the southeast, the narrative is that the power's down throughout the world. So for whatever reason, so many people at the same moment in history decided to write about the southeast in this power grid event. But in all those stories, it is the world where the grid is down. So again, Jade Helm, where they did the major military exercises. But again, the parallel with Janet Napolitano and Public Enemy. And the reason Public Enemy put out the song in 91, By the Time I Get to Arizona, which is, I forget the man who sung that song originally, I forget his name. But the reason they put that out was because of Martin Luther King Jr., because Arizona was the last state to recognize Martin Luther King Jr. Day, so Arizona is seen as this racist state. And with regards to that point, remember, let me close some tabs here. The album that came out, What You Gonna Do When the Grid Goes Down, September 25th, that day can be written 25/9, like 259, Black Lives Matter 259. Public Enemy's also 172, like What You Gonna Do When the Grid Goes Down, like the Jesuit motto Ad Merum de Gloriam is 172. came out on a date with 54 numerology. And when Janet Napolitano made her remarks on January 24th, it was 56 days from her birthday. Power outage is 56. Society of Jesus 56. Washington, D.C. 56. Remember when Chuck D put out the album on September 25th. Thought I had this slide up. When Chuck D put out the album, it was 56 days after his birthday as well. Again, New York, Arizona. And then the parallel to 9/11, you might recall that the World Series was backed up because of 9/11, and it was between New York and Arizona. Right after 9/11, the World Series was New York and Arizona. They happen to be the only two states that have Gematria 39 in the most pure cipher. But let me see. Is this the post where I got it? Here it is. Here it is. Chuck D's birthday is August 1st. From his birthday to the release of the album, September 26th, 56 days, right? Society of Jesus, 56. Power outage, 56. But Black Lives Matter, 56 and 259, right? And again, in 91, they put out By the Time I Get to Arizona, which is about racism. And now we have Black Lives Matter, where, as we know in recent years, there's been all this focus on racial division. And again, you guys, they're building us up towards a climax is the way I see it. You know, getting everybody divided, you know, as many people hating each other as possible. You know, and then imagine they add the stressful event of taking down the grid all throughout the nation. Imagine how ugly it could get and how fast. And just realize we would have been baited into all of this by the Jesuits, who are pulling us around like we're puppets on strings. And again, the other thing about this, the day that they announced the album, was the day that Chadwick Boseman died, the Black Panther, right, in the film, who also played Jackie Robinson. Remember, Chadwick Boseman died on Jackie Robinson Day, and also the birthday of Jack Kirby, who wrote Black Panther. And again, Jackie Robinson, the baseball player, was in World War II, and he was a member of the Black Panthers Tank Brigade. But the thing about the Black Panther film is the first... Oh, by the way, when they go back to Oakland, where the Black Panther Party was established, you can see there's two posters in the room, if you're paying attention, and they're both Public Enemy posters. There's two Public Enemy posters in the room, which makes sense because I think they go back to like late 80s or right around early 90 when Public Enemy was probably the biggest act in hip-hop. But the first action scene, right after they show that, the first action scene is the Black Panther jumping out of not a helicopter, but a plane, and he throws down this technology, and it knocks out the power on the vehicles that they attack. So power related, right? And then they announced this album on the same day that Chadwick Boseman dies, the star of that film, right? And if you missed my work on Chadwick Boseman's death, well, I guess it's all been taken down by YouTube now due to all the censorship. But again, just so many Jesuit fingerprints all over that as well. And if you recall, before he even died, I did a big video on Jackie Robinson and why they moved Jackie Robinson Day to that day, and just the whole Jesuit ritual with that. Again, it's the Jesuits behind all of this. Okay. So, with regards to Christopher Wray's announcement on the anniversary of the Great Reset, remember, this Great Reset is what allowed us to predict that the power outages would come either January 15th to start the year or Valentine's Day. It was one of those 2 days, and the reason why is simple. The Great Reset equals power outage equals Valentine's Day, which equals 151. That's why they announced it on June 3rd. 151 is the 36th prime. June 3rd can be written 36. 36 is associated with the number of the beast. 666 is the 36th triangular number. But again, it ended up being Valentine's Day. And we noticed there was something really special about Valentine's Day, which we'll revisit. But it's not an accident that now you have the FBI head at age 54 on the anniversary of this coming and talking about, again, reminding these cyber attacks will be a 9/11 level event. We've heard this before. And all of this stuff goes together. The Great Reset, You know, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, all of these things are connected. It's about reshaping the world. It's about reducing the population. It is about saving the earth, seemingly. I mean, that's the one part of the agenda I can get down with. Okay, they care about the earth. I don't know why they didn't start caring a long time ago when we didn't have to take such drastic measures to fix things, because that's kind of how it is. It's like they wanted to abuse the earth and its people for their own exploit and gain, and now they're like, okay, if we want to survive, we have to do something. We need some drastic changes. How do we maintain power and control? Or better yet, how do we even gain even more power and control and do what we need to do to solve the problems in the earth? And at their, Bilderberg type table. Remember, the first Bilderberg conference was in 54. If you don't know what the Bilderberg conference is, that's where once a year the world's super rich who control industry, media, government, these types, they get together and they plot out their big rituals for the year. For example, in 2017, one of their 10 bullet points was what to do about online conspiracy theorists, and that was the year a lot of us got pretty much permanently erased. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say permanently, because you can come back if you want to, but you realize how much of the truth community has given up since 2017 due to the censorship. I've been deleted 21 times off YouTube. I've been deleted off other social media platforms. I mean, I've been deleted a lot of times for sharing this work, but that was one of the Bilderberg talking points in 2017, what to do about conspiracy theorists online. And Google went to a whole new level with their censorship that year. But again, it's obvious that at their conference it must be like something like, well, probably the easiest way to minimize them is just to get them to eliminate themselves. How can we do that? How about let's go full board on the propaganda, get them divided among every single possible line there is, and then how about just turn off the power? I bet that'll take care of it. They probably all look around the table like, I think that would work. We can do that. And I'm pretty sure that's where they're taking us. And again, the Great Reset, 151. 1 month later, they do the cyber polygon simulation on July 8th, 2020. Klaus Schwab says, these cyber attacks that are coming, they're going to be even worse than the pandemic you're living out right now. And again, the pandemic was simulated right before it happened by Klaus Schwab and his World Economic Forum, the Jesuits. And Klaus Schwab, he was 82 at the time. Remember Ordo Abchow, 82, Christopher Ray, 82. He's had this 65 days from his birthday, pandemic number. And with regards to pandemic being 65 forwards and 151 in reverse, remember, they say the first case of coronavirus arrived in the U.S. on January 15th, and it was confirmed January 21st. And it was right by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who were part of the Event 201 simulation on Melinda Gates' 65th day of her age, where 65 million died in the simulation, and the couple was married 65 days after Bill Gates' 38th birthday. When pandemic equals 65 and 38, they were married January 1st, 94, coronavirus pandemic 94. Again, a whole lot more to that, but like I argued in my book, it looks like they were an arranged marriage for the coronavirus pandemic, and now you see they get divorced after the vaccine agenda is well underway. So, also interesting, the announcement was 212 days before the start of 2021. Again, with New York being so central, New York's the 212 area code. Their Knicks season just ended on the day leaving 212 days left in the year. A lot of 212 rituals in New York. And New York, no stranger to power outages by the numbers. We've talked about that a few times over the years. Go back and review that work at a later time. But the 212 also connects to Davos, Switzerland, where these people are operating out of, the World Economic Forum, Bill Gates, New World Order types all over Switzerland. Remember, the pandemic was declared from Switzerland. And let's see. Okay, I think we covered what we needed there. Yeah, we covered that. And just a reminder, the power outages of Valentine's Day. Again, where's the Gematria? Where do I have it at? Maybe it's down further. There it is. Again, the Great Reset, Valentine's Day, power outage, they're all 151. Hold on. I forget, is Revolution also 151? Let me check that out. Yeah, Revolution, the TV show about the power outage, is also 151 and 56. A show about a power outage with 151 and 56, right? And 52, because Revolution had the 52 in it as well. So Revolution's got 3 out of the 4 values for power outage. The show about the power outage where, you know, the world has changed forever. But Klaus Schwab, it was 322 days after his birthday, that infamous number of skull and bones, who gets their symbolism from the Knights Templar, who also serve the Catholic Church, which is why the Jesuits, which Klaus Schwab is a member of, have the Templar cross in their logo. So again, all this stuff related. But it was also 46 weeks after his birthday. Again, 46 weeks. Out of all the places that got hit with the power outages, Houston, Texas got it the worst, with severe cold, unprecedented cold. And again, think about it. The Great Reset, which he called for, which we knew was the clue for them shutting off the lights, because all year they were saying the darkest winter as well. But Houston, that got hit the hardest, is the biggest oil refining city in the world. And this is about going away from fossil fuels, which to me is not a bad thing, but what is an evil thing to do is, and again, I mean, this is why it's so hard in this world, because people are not awake to what's going on. They do not realize that weather warfare has been admitted to since 1952, which means that if flash flooding and weather warfare could be implemented in 52, that means at the rate technology's increased, obviously they can do a lot more in 2021, and we saw how severe it was what they could do. They froze out Houston. And I'm sure a lot of people died in Houston, especially homeless people living outside. The numbers they report in the media for dead were not that high. But again, the media reports bullshit every day. I'm sure a lot of homeless people died in Houston, and probably even more people in their own homes. Elderly, people on electronical devices plugged in the wall that are helping with their breathing. And I mean, there's just so many people in the country with this type of scenario. But again, we saw all of this before it happened. And like I told people, I said, make sure you have a propane stove. Make sure you have water. Make sure you have dry food in case all your stuff in the fridge and freezer spoils. These are the ways to be prepared. Don't live in fear, but be aware of the times. Like, even though I know all this for all this time, I haven't ever lived in fear. I've just said, man, well, at least I know what could happen and I won't be caught off guard, and I got the supplies if this is what it's going to be. But Houston, Texas also 46, and the reason Astro World's up here is because we talked about at the time just how many things they did. They had the Houston rap star Travis Scott with his Astro World album with the hit song where they repeat out like a light a million times. Remember that week, J.J. Watt, the big Houston football star, he wanted out of Houston. Deshaun Watson also wanted out of Houston. And where did Watt go? Watt was the one that left town, and he went to Phoenix. Order out of chaos. Phoenix, the solar city. The Great Reset's about moving from fossil fuels to renewable energy. Going from Houston, the refining city, to Phoenix, the renewable energy city. And again, on the same day that the FBI head comes out, on the same day, you have the Phoenix Suns close out the Lakers, keeping LeBron, the biggest star in sports, at 4-6 in finals, when Phoenix is 46 in this same most pure cipher. This is all ritual. And again, what we talked about, from that Sicko Mode song with the Out Like a Light, from that song to the outage was 909 days. J.J. Watt wears the number 99. Jupiter equals 99, which is associated with electricity. The power's out. And Thursday is the day that's named after Jupiter. Christopher Wray's announcement yesterday on the anniversary of the Great Reset was on a Thursday, you see? So it was also 75 days from Travis Scott's birthday, Electric 75. He's on Epic Records, which is another 75. Electric and Valentine have a lot in common. And J.J. Watt's full name is Justin James Watt, which also has Gematria of 200, like the Great Reset, like Valentine's Day. And you know what? While I'm at it, let me just pull up Damian Lillard, whose brother's name is Houston, reminding of Clyde Drexler from Houston, the Portland Trail Blazer. Great. But I think this is where I got it at right here. Just show how, because Portland had the longest power outage in the nation. Houston got it the worst, but Portland was without power the longest. And Portland and Houston have connections with Enron in history, and Enron came up here and bought out Portland General Electric, and they went bankrupt right after. And then everybody who worked for PGE lost all of their pension, and it happened really fast. It was like, okay. Yeah, a lot of people got destroyed by Enron and their corruption. And remember, Enron and WorldCom were the biggest supporters of George W. Bush, who was the president at the time. And then supposedly the federal cases against Enron and WorldCom, they were hurt because of what happened on 9/11, because a lot of the documents and evidence for their wrongdoing was supposedly in Building 7, the building that came down 8 hours later in the day. But Damian Lillard's brother Houston coaches at Jefferson High School, which is right up the street from where the Blazers play. But look at this. From the day of his birthday to the power outage was 214 days. Lillard, the big star in Portland, 214. And again, I'm just talking about how they got, Portland and Houston were the cities that got it the worst on Valentine's Day. And Portland's known as RIP City. Rest in peace city. So make of that what you will. But also, from the blackout to Lillard's upcoming birthday was 151 days, like Valentine's Day, like power outage. And again, I mean, this is what we've been talking about the whole time. 9/11, Patriot Act, Patriots. When Houston flooded and LA burned, we said right then, water puts out fires. Houston will beat LA in the World Series. You got Katrina and the Saints. I mean, again, and people can't fathom how all of this could be scripted and planned, but it's, again, because they don't have enough knowledge. They don't realize that the military really is in control of the weather, so they can dictate what happens with the weather. The weather is scripted, which we've been proving for how many years? How many days have we said to circle the 52-day and just documented the flooding, the hurricanes, the cyclones? I mean, we've been doing it for years. And yeah, that's right, too. Clyde Drexler, again, from Houston, who played in Portland for many years. His middle name is Austin, and they said part of the fiasco in Texas was that Austin took over the entire power grid, essentially, for the state. And you just had Joe Rogan move there, and Elon Musk, these Jesuit pawns and puppets. It's, again, all roads point back to the Jesuits in Rome. So... And now that I think about it, Portland got closed out yesterday, too, in the playoffs. So, But yeah, J.J. Watt, he was the third superstar in Houston to leave the city at age 31, and he left on March 1st, 3-1 with a $31 million deal. When Houston's 31, the other stars to leave at age 31 were James Harden and George Springer. George Springer, the baseball player, James Harden, the NBA player. Three biggest sports stars in Houston all leave the city at age 31. For years, we've taught Houston's the 31 city. So many major 31 rituals in sports. Also, let us not forget that J.J. Watt's birthday is March 22nd, 322. Remember, what happened in Houston was 322 days after Klaus Schwab's birthday. He was also born in 89. Chaos is 89. And he was born on the 9th birthday of the Georgia Guidestones, established March 22nd, 1980. So, and again, what you going to do when the grid goes down with Arizona's Monument Valley on the cover? J.J. Watt ends up in Arizona after Houston gets smashed 142 days after this album came out. And, of course, Valentine's Day can be written 14/2. And that is a number that relates to 9/11 too, because the 9/11 attack was 102 minutes, which is an hour and 42 minutes, and terrorist equals 142. Again, they keep saying that the next 9/11 will be the power grid going down. Monument Valley, which is on the cover of the album, equals 57. So does conspiracy. But Valentine's Day had 57 date numerology as well. And yeah, so what's frustrating to think is we keep putting out this kind of information, and it should all be archived. It should all be up on, you know, YouTube and Google, but it's not. And eventually this video will not be there either. But for the entire time I've been here, my main focus has been the same thing, if you guys did not know that. Exposing who's behind the agenda and trying to get ahead of the curve so we can stop their plans before they happen. And we have not been able to stop their plans, but for people who've listened, we've definitely been able to help out a lot of people. And, you know, anybody in Houston who'd taken this advice, they definitely did a lot better while it was freezing, you know, because they had the information. They were more mentally prepared. And I got to admit, even before that happened, I wouldn't have thought that Houston could get that cold. That's why it was amazing to witness what they did to Houston, how cold they made it. And again, weather warfare has been an admitted thing since '52. It's 2021, and we know how much technology. Think about it. What did TVs even exist in 1952? That's around the time they came out. But I mean, just think of a TV back then compared to a TV now, and a computer. You know, not even that long ago compared to a computer now. So. By the way, shout out to Tim, who came out yesterday, who was with me. I was at the Moda Center again yesterday, trying to wake up those Blazer fans. But Tim, who was born in Ohio, from the Cleveland area, for about the last decade, he's been living down in South America, near the border of Ecuador and Colombia, and he says it's just fantastic down there. He says, you know, if you need fast-paced life and energy, it's the wrong spot. But if you just like beautiful scenery, being around friendly people, having an abundance of food around you, if you like living modestly and inexpensively, he said it's the place. And he was telling me, he said, like, you can get a nice plot of land, a beautiful acre of land for, he said, upwards of $15,000, but even a lot less than that. And I was just like, wow. So maybe that's what we need to start doing as a community. We need to scout out some land down near the. I've been saying this for a while. I'm all about creating the community of like-minded people who want to live together, look out for each other, grow food. That's one of the main things I've been after as well. But I'm not sure it's going to happen in the States. And listening to Tim yesterday, he's like, it really is just a great place down there. It's very inexpensive. It's the type of place you can achieve the community you're talking about. And yeah, again, like I told you, sweet lady, she's determined to finish school. And sometimes I say to her, you don't need to finish school. We could always, we're both smart. We can make things happen. But she wants to finish her school. She's got a year left. In a year, she'll be done. I hope I'm not wrong. I imagine in a year, again, I don't know for sure, you guys. I'm not a psychic. But I think in a year, I still don't think I could be wrong. I got to admit it, but I think in a year we'll all still be here, and I'm sure a whole bunch of bad shit will happen between now and then, but I think that their game-changing event, you know, their mass reduction plan, I still think that's some years off. I do worry that it could come as soon as 2024, because again, that's 44 years after the Georgia Guidestones were put up, 2024. Remember, Georgia's 44, genocide's 44, kills 44, executions 44, military's 44, fateful number in history. I do worry about the Georgia Guidestones turning 44 years old, and but that's still a few years away, and I'd like to think that by then, might very well be down in a place just like Ecuador, Colombia, growing some food, and down there with the truth seekers who want to achieve the same thing. But again, you guys, that they are telling us what their plans are. They always do. And when they do them, of course, they will blame it on some boogeyman. But again, it's a time to live with your head on a swivel, understand what time it is, what's etched in stone, what they've been repeating now for a decade, you guys. They've been saying it for a decade now about the next 9/11. Not a matter of if, but when. A massive cyber attack, the grid going down, total chaos, the possibility of being set back a century. The Amish will be prepared, but we'll leave it there for now, you guys. Appreciate all of you, and Please like and share the video if you can. We got to wake up the masses. And until next time.